Welcome to the Lazy CEO Podcast, where Jim Schleckser, author of Great CEOs Are Lazy and founder of the CEO Project, features compelling experts and topics for CEOs of mid to large-size companies. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another Lazy CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schleckser. I'm your host, and I am the founder of the CEO Project. Well, today we're going to deal with a topic that is near and dear to the hearts of all leaders, particularly CEOs, in a difficult employment market where we're trying to find specialized talent. And more particularly, we're looking for those top performers, which are the ones that are going to make the difference in our business. And we've talked about A players and B players. And, remember, A players, this is not just a little bit more. They can be 70% more is kind of the average, but depending on the role, they can be 3, 4, 5, 10 times better than your average employee, like in software coding, for example, or sales. And so finding the great talent matters as well as keeping them. So we've got an expert on that topic today that's going to help us with some of his ideas in this space. We have Matt Walsh. He's the CEO and founder of Blue Signal Search, a recruiting firm out of Phoenix, Arizona. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
So give us sort of the overview of what do you see going on in the employment markets? For a while, we had zip for unemployment and you couldn't find people and nobody wanted to get off the couch and depending on the job class, right? So what are you seeing now in employment markets sort of broadly, maybe things that the unemployment number doesn't tell us?
Yeah, well, the unemployment number is phenomenal too, by the way. And I think most people aren't aware of how good it is, but I'm seeing just a misalignment on expectations across the board. CEOs, executive leadership, they're seeing CNBC, they're seeing all the layoffs, they're seeing that all these tech companies overhired and there should be all this great talent available. They see that people want to work from home and now they're mandating they come back into the office. So I'm going to get that person because they should be available. And unfortunately, that is not the case. Most CEOs are looking at the economy today. Yes, we probably overhired. Yes, we probably utilized our PPP monies and we grew because everybody else was growing. We spent money we didn't have because it wasn't our money and it was awesome. And then now it's starting to contract and come back, but they don't want to let go of their good people because even if this recession does happen, they see this rebound on the other side of it. So there's that. Then there's the piece of you look at our birth rate is lower than our death rate. And so we're actually not growing just in population in general. Our immigration is down 80%. And the most important factor is the labor participation rate. And as you may be aware, the last 4 or 5 years plus the next 10 years, it's just baby boomers retiring left and right. And if you look at the amount of baby boomers retiring and the amount of folks entering the workforce, we're at a 300,000 person deficit year over year for the next 5 to 6 years. Wow. And so there's just not enough people out there. And then you couple all the other problems you just mentioned about, well, folks want to work from home. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They only want to work 40 hours a week, which is true because it's all work-life balance. It's all let's focus on this. You should have that employee first mandates everywhere. And it's just been a complete struggle because the CEO thinks I should be able to get everybody. They should be honored and humbled to want to work here. The candidate, meanwhile, roll out the red carpet. I'm running the show. I'm going to get all these options. I'm going to negotiate like this. I'm still running the show. And then talent acquisition is stuck right in the middle. How do I get these two to see eye to eye?
Well, okay. So we've now got an impossible problem in front of us. But, and I remember when I was taking macroeconomics, they talked about the frictional unemployment rate, right? And, you're never going to get below those days, 5 or 6%. And here we are below 4 on an ongoing basis. So it does sort of speak to your comment that we are in a constrained market. So let's start with, how do we attract, people with this view that where, labor has the advantage, right? I am a scarce commodity. I am the thing that is desirable, and therefore I should be rewarded for it. How do we attract people with that view of the world?
Oh boy, that's a great question. $1 million question, because I don't think anyone's doing it perfectly. I mean, even if you look at the Amazons, the Metas, the big companies of the world, even they struggle with it from time to time,
Mm.
even though they have this big brand, this big name that everybody knows. So it's case by case, and you got to look at each individual role and profile. And yeah, you look at the unemployment rate, and around the four, but you look at some other positions like like accountants and lawyers and engineers in certain categories, the unemployment rate is probably negative
Yeah.
5%. There's just
Yeah.
not enough of them to go around because people haven't been naturally excited about those professions for a while. You know, you ask your kids today, what do they want to be when they grow up? They all say TikTok influencer, or I want to be YouTube, whatever. But they definitely don't say I want to be an accountant. They definitely don't say I want to be an engineer. And now they're all terrified of AI. Well, what's the future going to hold with all these jobs being taken away, and where do I go? So to answer your question, the first part is you start with educating the workforce on why what they're doing for your company is relevant and why it matters. So you start with, listen, we're doing this, we're changing the world, we're bettering lives, we're saving lives, whatever it is. I don't, figure that part of it out. And then you start to build a program for that. Because a lot of where we're seeing is skilled labor, plumbers,
Yeah.
electricians, techs, folks that are out in the field. Nobody wants to do that work, and there's not enough people to do it. And let's be honest, AI is not replacing that stuff anytime soon.
Right.
And so how do we really sell that mission? So it's career growth. You come in here, you're going to start here, you're going to grow to here. This is the plan. This is where you go. Here's the next steps. Here's how salary is. Here's how you can create your life, your family, your freedom, starting with this job that I get on the surface. That job is not the most attractive or exciting out there. So it's not what is the job today, it's what will it become. And
Right.
then you have to sell that package. You have to sell the growth of the industry and where you're at. And then it breaks into certain subsets of each one of those categories. If it's IT or tech, what's the software? What's the engineering? What's the in vertical? What are we working on? If it's accounting, finance, focus on the thing that we know those folks are focused on. HR, it's culture, it's work life. So you have to really have those certain elements of it. And then you got to cater to the talent. Man, what did Jerry Maguire say? Show me the money. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you can show them the money, but then guess what? Someone else is just going to show them more money.
Right.
And so if somebody is taking your job because it's the most money, that's a big problem. In fact, we don't want that. When we work with candidates, we actually want our clients' offer to be the lowest, because then we know they're accepting for all the other reasons: the growth, the leadership, the skill set, the product, the people. Insert 50 other things here that need to be higher up than money. Otherwise, that person's going to leave as soon as someone else offers more, and it helps with profitability.
And there's good research to say money isn't a primary motivator. It's an environmental factor. It needs to be what they call felt fair. But there is a very small number of people that are purely money motivated. And the problem, to your point, is they are mercenaries. The next better offer, they're going to go take. So let's go back. You put a lot on the table there. Let's start with purpose. And particularly as we move to, younger generations, the fact that you are making the world a better place in some way is important to them. So what are you seeing in terms of presenting this is purposeful work, right? This is work that is worth getting out of bed and coming to do every day at our organization. Who's doing that well? How are people positioning what they're doing with purpose in a way that's helpful in recruiting people?
Oh, such a great topic. So there's been a lot of studies on the millennials, the Gen X, the Gen Z, and everyone coming in it and what's important to them. I am technically a millennial, so I can talk a little bit about the millennials without too much repercussion.
I think you might have just squeezed in on that one, but okay.
I did. You're right. I did. I'm one of the older millennials. I get reminded of that often at my office.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is purpose. What makes you tick? What's your why? What drives you? What fills your bucket? All of those therapeutic type questions that should be asked so the person can self-reflect and understand that when I get up and I do this job, it fills my bucket. It motivates me. I'm getting fired up every morning to go do this because of that, not to make the paycheck, because now I know I can get a job anywhere. I think I can get a job anywhere for the paycheck purpose of it. I need to know that I'm making that difference. So I have seen companies start to look at the roles that they're looking at. What does the future growth look like? Then where are the majority of those people coming from? Are they straight out of school? Are they already 5 or 6 years out? What is that generalization? What does that class look like? And they're trying to tailor some of their messaging towards that to ensure that those folks feel comforted and secure. Because I've seen a lot actually where folks are taking less money, a lot less money actually, because of the purpose. So the
Wow.
purpose. Oh yeah, millennial, Gen X, Gen Z, purpose is the most important thing. So here at our company, we're all about lives changed. I know it sounds cheesy, but that's what it is. Every placement we make, that's a life changed. Every client that we work with and we build their executive team, well, we're changing the lives there too, because now however they built the team, they can grow and succeed. But then my biggest needle that I always look at is our internal folks. If I can take somebody off the street, poor choice of words, somebody early in their career, bring them into here, and I can actually teach them this, where they can make a life, create a family, all that stuff. In my mind, that's a huge life change. So we try to gauge our needle by that. And then when we ask companies, we ask them a few different things. One is, what is your purpose? What is your mission statement? Now obviously right now it's a war for talent. What do you do to appreciate your employees? I love asking C-level that question, because sometimes like, oh, well, check with HR. Big flag if they automatically deter you to HR or to the chief people officer, because as a CEO, you're driving that, how you appreciate your employees. And that's where you get a lot of the purpose too.
Interesting. You're making me think of a book by Daniel Pink by the name of Drive. It's a couple of years old, but he talked about really three things that are intrinsic motivators as opposed to extrinsic motivators. Outside motivators like money is an extrinsic, but intrinsic purpose is one. He talked about mastery was another one. And you went down that path pretty hard when you talked about, hey, you're going to go from here to here. You're going to learn these things. Your career is going to grow. I was thinking like, junior plumber, master plumber, in that trade, or electrician or coder, right? That offering the opportunity to become masterful at your craft may be another angle that people go for. Who's doing that well? And what have you seen work in the area of come here and learn a whole metric ton of great stuff if you're with us? Is anybody doing that well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of companies out there. A good way to gauge that is there's all kinds of cultural, Inc. best places to work. There's I could think of maybe 20 or 30 different best places to work, and a lot of these are done by third parties, so that you can't just, I'm going to have my mom vote that this is a great place to work. Like you actually have employees. It has to be confidential. They have to volunteer, and it's interesting that they do these, and if they are voted in there and they get into that category, of course they're always generated these nice reports. So who am I seeing doing that well? It's typically the mid-size companies. I mean, you can insert any industry you want here, where the CEO is not too far removed from the line. So they're on there. They know what's going on. They're talking to their folks. They're understanding it. That any person at that company knows they can pick up the phone and call the CEO at any point. And I've seen that typically, although everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. They're intruding on the CEO's time, and how they ever going to get anything done, and blah blah blah. Typically, even though they offer it, people don't take them up on that every single day. I mean, it's just the fact that I know I could pick up the phone and call the CEO. So mid-sized companies, a range of different industries, but I see a lot of them doing it well, because they know it's a war for talent, and because they're fighting against some of the larger companies. Now, the larger companies, they are starting to put these policies in place together as well. And a lot of them will brag about it on their website. Why join us, or come work here? And there'll be videos, there'll be potlucks, there'll be the whatever their summits were, and bands they had playing, all the fun stuff that they thought the younger generation wanted to see. But it's actually a lot more on the community and giving back, and toy drives, and all that kind of stuff. So the companies we see that actually have websites dedicated to it, they have it in their mission statement, they have it sometimes even listed on their job descriptions, they tend to be doing a lot better in that particular category.
Interesting. So maybe this takes us over to another topic, which is retention. And the worry about providing mastery, right? Like, I'm going to teach you new coding languages and new skills and new capability and upgrade you over time, is how do I keep them, right? So we've seen a shortening of sort of tenure at companies. And I think one of the worries that CEOs have is, and there's an old joke about this, I'm sure you know it, but investing in people is great, and I want that to happen, but then they might leave and go work for somebody else. So now what do I do, right? And the joke real quickly is, the CFO says that, hey, if we invest in these people and then they leave, what do we do? And the CEO says, well, what if we don't invest in them and they stay, right? So it's a real problem. But how do you see people thinking about that question of shorter time horizons with us? I'll give you a quick example. My son started one company, I'm not going to name them, and they gave him a bunch of stock options that had a vesting period that were going to be worth a certain amount of money. I said, man, Danny, that's amazing. He goes, yeah, it's 3-year vesting. I'm not going to be there in 3 years. Gen Z all the way, right? So how do we think about that?
Oh boy. So I'll tell you how I think about it,
Yeah,
and it's
no,
not
that's
not
all I'm
not
looking for.
it's not the right way. I mean, it's not for everybody. Let me just put it that way. I always get asked this, like, "Oh man, you're in that cutthroat headhunting agency. You must have the strictest non-compete, and I bet you people can't ever leave you and go anywhere." I'm like, actually, contrary to that, the way I look at non-competes, that's like me telling my wife to never leave the house, never talk to any other person. Like, no, but no, it's on me to be a good husband. It's on me to be a good father. It's on me to do all those things. It's on me to show that employee the career path, to have all the tools to be successful, to be all. And at any point, if that employee ever feels they have it better somewhere else, not shame on them and here's your non-compete down your throat. Shame on me for not showing them that it's better here. So I always use that as a learning opportunity. And I've had times where I think I've had maybe 5, 6, 7 really good recruiters that ended up leaving, and I promote it. I'll talk to that person. I'll tell them how awesome you are. If your clients want to go with you, I'll promote that too, because if at any point my client is choosing you over the blue signal process and everything else that we're doing, again, shame on me, not shame on you. Now, the good news is 4 or 5 of them after they've left have all wanted to come back, and we've taken a lot of them back. So a lot of times it's just, are we seeing if the grass is always greener? Now, does everybody agree with that viewpoint? No, that's hard. And we're not going to just go away with all non-competes and let it be the Wild West, unless you're in certain states and you have no option.
Well,
But
I'm going to tell you, federally, they may go away.
yeah,
There's a move afoot to get rid of non-competes broadly. And now maybe at the very top executive levels, you could hold them still. But yeah, like California, we didn't even bother signing them. They weren't worth the paper they were written on. But that may happen nationally. So people that are dependent on the paper to keep people in place, they may lose that tool pretty quickly here.
Yep. You're right. It is going to expose a lot of folks that, unfortunately, that was how they did things. So, so my mindset is always show them the best place, give them all the tools, make sure that they can be as successful as possible. And as soon as you have to survey, you have to understand if people are leaving, do exit interviews and really care about the exit interviews and give them that comfort and vulnerability to really share what they're hearing. And you need someone else on the other end of it to be just as vulnerable. Otherwise, they're not going to tell you what they want to hear, or they'll just go to Glassdoor afterwards and bash you for all that stuff anyways.
Yeah. You'll find out later if you don't find out in the exit interview, right?
Yes. So you got to start somewhere, and no company is perfect. Even the perfect ones aren't perfect. There's always room for improvement, and you just have to understand what don't they like? What could we do better? And there's going to be a lot of times where it's like, come on, we can never do that. We'd be bankrupt. We can't afford to do that, which is fine. Maybe there's alternatives. Maybe there's other ways. Maybe offer more PTO. Maybe offer better flexibility. Maybe offer a pay. I don't know. There's so many different creative ways that you can show that you care about your employees without costing it an arm and a leg. And I think it's just understanding what they want, where their frustrations are, where they're trying to go. It starts there.
Interesting. We touched on contracts. So, depending on the level, it may be contractual employment. What are you seeing going on with contracts, with employment contracts? And I know we talked about non-competes and that those may be falling away a little bit, but like at executive level compensation and contracts, what are you seeing in terms of a trend in that space? What is it taking to bring people down? Particularly, I think if it's non-remote and you're looking for somebody to move, I think a lot of times they want to see a contract to give them some security against that move. But what are you seeing in the space of contracts for top level employees? A thing, less of a thing, and even go into like, what are the interesting clauses that you're seeing in these things?
Yeah, great question. So I'll do executive and then maybe the next level right below executive. So I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing some from, if they want to work here, they can move on their own dime. They can do all this stuff. I don't care. I've seen some of those. We probably won't work with them.
How's that working out for them?
Right. We probably won't work with them. And then I've seen some on the other side that we will move mountains. We will move our headquarters to this person if they're really that good. Like I mean, it really is that side of the spectrum because they understand how important talent is. And then others like, no, we're here. They should appreciate working here. And so I've seen full reloads. I've seen buying and selling of houses. I've seen years, 2 years, contracts, employment contracts. Once you get on an international focus, obviously you get into the UK and other areas. I mean, they have those 3 to 6 months where they're protected no matter what.
Yep.
Which that blows my mind. We do recruiting internationally, and that's very challenging, just because it's a little bit different here. But I think you have to remind the person, like, what do you want? What do you really want an A player for this role? And if they say yes, you have to remind them that A player mentality. That person is probably working today. And when that person goes to give their resignation, they're going to pull out all the stops to keep them. Like, you can't go anywhere. We'll double your equity. We'll double your pay. Like, they know that person is good, and they realize how hard it is going to be to find another one of those people. So you have to realize, yes, they might be making X today, but what you're really up against is what that counteroffer is going to be once they resign, if they are good. And so many folks don't think about that aspect of it. And here's another thing, like, a lot of folks will be like, oh, they won't make a counteroffer, or they didn't even make a counteroffer, or they said, nope, it all went well. Like, well, now that's a huge concern. Why didn't they make a counteroffer? Why didn't they try to keep you?
Yeah.
And so we have to roll out the red carpet. Gone are the days of, okay, fill out this assessment, do this behavioral profile, put together a business plan, and if I like you, we'll get you in front of the CEO. Come on, no A player is going to go through that right now. You have to understand they're going to probably do 1, 2, 3 calls with the CEO before they even want to put together a resume. And I'm not pushing my folks to put together resumes. And here's why. Hey, client, yes, I can have them put together a resume for you. But guess what? Once that's done, now they have it together. All their friends, all their network, everything online is saying, well, if you got it together, you might as well share it with a couple other companies. So now your dollar point's going to go up, because if they're really good, they're going to get multiple offers, and your likelihood of landing them is going to go down based off of that. So are you open to them not putting together an updated resume and they're like, oh yeah, I guess I never thought about that. So we're actually not pushing resumes anymore. We're pushing people.
Fascinating. That's very counterintuitive, but I like your line of thinking there. Like, you just put them in play. You just put them in play, and that's not what you wanted to do. Yeah.
And then when you go a level below that, so I'll be talking to a CEO, they want a CTO or a ops or VP of sales or chief revenue officer. And I'll be like, hey, do you want an A player or do you want a B player? And let me tell you the difference, or a C player, which is fine. They're all out there and we can get you all 3 of them. You might not need us for C player or below, but if you want A's and B's, we can do it. The B player will update his resume. The B player will talk to HR first for the normal screening call. Then they will fill out that behavioral assessment you want done. And then they'll jump through all those steps before they talk to you. And they'll probably be in line. They'll tell you why they want to work there, why they're making a move. And we can find that person. But in my mind, that's a B player, because if they're willing to go through all those steps in today's market, there's something wrong with them. If you want an A player, you got to talk to them first. You got to tell them why your mission is better, your company is better, their life and their family and their kids are all going to be better because they come and join your company. And if you can't clearly communicate that to them quickly, then we're not going to be able to get an A player.
Interesting.
And I coach them on that, because that's a tough thing to do.
No, absolutely. Particularly when you grew up in a dynamic that said they come to us, we don't go to them. It's very hard to change the mental model, for people. What about on the compensation side? So, let's say I got a job that's a $200,000 job for whatever it is. What is the differential in compensation I'm going to have to sign up for to get a true A player, an absolute, a high level performer in that job? And then that could be coding, it could be accounting, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be whatever. What's sort of the factor that you've seen to get really, really top talent to come to your company?
Yeah. So 2 different topics there. One, salary. They're out of whack. I mean, folks have been overpaid. They were getting overpaid, and companies were doing whatever they could to get them. Unfortunately, those went up. Some of them have started to come down, but if you look at the hot industries right now, like professional services and certain parts of manufacturing, certain parts are terrible, but you look at some of the key industries, like those have still gone up, and they are still going up. And so companies have had to adjust their pricing, their models, in order to stay in business and be profitable. Sure. And then you look at, so typically a 200K candidate, you really need to understand, well, what's driving that 200K. And I get
by
this
the way,
a lot.
I'm just saying 200K is market. When I go to the salary survey, it says, about 200K. Now I want an A player. That's where.
Okay.
Keep going.
Great point, because sometimes these salary surveys aren't entirely accurate. So we do this for our client, where they'll say, I want somebody in this industry with this skill set coming from one of our 17 competitors. Well, that salary survey is not looking at those exact 17 competitors. It's just saying, generally speaking, the people that are willing to fill out this survey, this is what we've gathered. Well, remember who those people are. Those are the B's and C's. I'm telling you right now, here's the 17 competitors you listed. Here's the top performers from all 17. Here's what they're making today. Here's what they're looking. You cannot get a better real-time salary survey than this. Right. So I can show you right now, unfortunately, you're $100,000 off. But that's okay. We can do one of 2 things. We can either pay more or expect less. Here is all the data to support that, so you can make that decision. And a lot of times what we find, and this, we're trying to change this, it's a battle, but it's usually, hey, well, here's the job description. This is the one we've always had. This is what we're looking for. This is what we think we need. Is it really? Like there's times where I'll want to actually get the department heads from that client on a call together. Tell me what you think is success in this role. Tell me what you think this collaboration with your department is going to be and what success looks like. And there's times we'll completely rework a job description. I don't even like calling them job descriptions anymore. We'll completely rework the search mandate so that now we see exactly what success looks like in the first 30, 60, 90, 1 year, 2 year. And now we can go to search for the candidate who's actually done that before and then show that, not the must have this experience, must have this degree, must have this, whatever. Gone are the must haves. Now are what have you done and how can you replicate that here? So it's a whole new work on those job descriptions. And what I've typically found is sometimes you can actually get them for less. Well, I know we said we needed a master's or a PhD in this, and I know we said we needed these multiple patents, but now that I've talked to all these department heads, we really need this, and that person's actually less. Or if you can sponsor an H-1B or do some other things, we can actually get creative to be under the budget. So there's a lot of different levers you can pull, but the truth is salary surveys are good for general budgeting purposes. Once you really get fine-tuned in what you're going after, it's going to adjust.
Interesting. I think you need to brand this outcome-based recruiting.
Yeah. Well,
right, because you're really talking about not job spec, but outcomes. Like, are you going to buy a drill or are you going to buy a hole? Well, I want the hole. Okay, let's talk about the hole then. Let's not talk about the drill. And that's essentially what you've done here with your recruiting profile.
Oh, that's so fun. I actually just did a training last week, the week before Thanksgiving on, listen, usually when you're looking at recruiting firms, you're looking at three things. You're looking at speed, quality, and price. And we're good on all those. I'll tell you what, we don't win on price. We never win on price. We're pretty expensive, but speed and quality, we get that all day long. But here's the thing that to us, that's way more important than any of those three things. Quality after the hire. We keep track of how long they've been there, how many times they've been promoted, what the company did as a result of their hire. And we actually track those. They're all over our website and they're like over double the industry average because nobody else really cares about that. They make the placement, they get the fee and they move on. Yeah. And so long as you can be that partner and look at, well, what happened after the fact. And the fun part is a lot of times it involves the onboarding and the training and working through it and things that you'd say, well, what does the recruiter have anything to do with any of that? But that is so important in the success of the person. And if we're going to be held accountable for the success of the person, we should have some kind of insight into the things going into their success. And you got to remember that with a lot of the recruiting firms you work with, you just look at the last person you got from them. Were they good or were they bad? And unfortunately, we just don't like pointing the finger where it needs to be pointed sometimes.
Now, do you select your clients on that basis? Do you say, hey, they've got a horrible onboarding process, it's not a great culture, we know that if we land somebody there, they aren't going to stick. And so, you know what? Better that we don't work with you. I know you don't put that on your website, but
we do. I'll share this with you. One of my favorite sayings is every company out there is working with me, whether they like it or not. As a recruiter, I'm either putting them in the front door or I'm taking them out the back
door.
Right. So I don't care which bucket you're in, but in order to be in this bucket where I'm putting them in the front door, here is a checklist of all the things that we look at. What is the interview process? What is the onboard process? What are your Glassdoor ratings? What do employees say about you? Talk to me about your product. What do your customers say about you? What are your differentiators? In recruiting, and we specialize in a lot of different industries, but you can only work with so many people. If you're in one small vertical of widget manufacturers or whatever that is, there's only so many players in that space. And so you got to make sure you're working with the best, because at the end of the day, you said something that has always resonates with me. We got to sleep at night too. I want to know that I'm putting you in a better job with a good culture and things are going well. I'm not just doing this for the paycheck. In fact, most of our recruiters don't even do this for the check anymore. They do it because they're making a difference and they're doing it for the right reason. Good news is the check comes as a byproduct of those things. But yes, to answer your question, we have a huge checklist we go through for any client. And if they're not up to par, and we'd say it in a nice way, unfortunately, we can't work with you based off of this. Here's our checklist. Well, I'm happy to work with you on that. If you want to improve your interview style, if you want to improve, I have some suggestions of people I could refer to you as well. So to answer your question, yes, we're pretty picky on who we work with.
You remind me, there's a Zig Ziglar expression. He goes, you can get anything you want in life as long as you help enough other people get what they want. So that was your point of do the good work and the money flows later. And I think worry about the good work, worry about the impact, and then money works out. Don't worry about that so much, right? And a lot of people have it inverted. They worry about the money and not do the good deed first, I think.
Yeah, so right.
Cool. Yeah. Well, maybe one last question. Everybody's worried about AI, and you touched on it before. What job categories or classes do you see being most profoundly impacted by AI? I mean, you went to the trades and say, look, we're always going to need plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, diesel mechanics. Got it. People that have to work with their hands. But what other categories, if your kid was going into one of these fields, you might go, you might want to rethink that one. Where do you see risk?
Oh, Jim, that is so funny. So I've seen 3 economists in the last month, and I have asked them both that exact same question. In fact, this last one that I did yesterday, that was my biggest question: is where do I guide my kids into going into school, and what's safe and what's not? And what I've noticed from all 3 of them is nobody knows. Like they're not giving me a concrete answer. They're giving me what you would think. So to answer the kid question, they always say, well, anything in STEM is probably good, anything in those types of areas, but it's really not the fundamental degree in the study. It's, can you identify a problem? Can you solve that problem?
Right.
Those are some of the things you're going to learn in school, and then can you apply that elsewhere? So as I look at AI, some folks look at it and they're terrified. Oh my gosh, our industry is going out because AI is going to take it over. What I have learned from all these economists and everybody else I'm talking from is AI is not replacing anybody today, but people using AI will 100% replace people not using AI in practically every field. So we're trying to use AI responsibly. In fact, we're getting ready to put a big push out on this. It just got thrown out there, and there's so many things. And are you doing it responsibly? Are you doing the right things? Are you putting stuff in there you probably shouldn't be putting in there? So we have all these policies and things that people need to do. And I've told a few folks about that, like, what, you guys have like, you should talk about that. I don't think anybody has policies on this stuff yet. I was like, oh, well, I always think, well, what would I want? Would I want someone cutting and pasting my resume into AI with all my data on it? Would I want, I mean, no. So why would I do that to somebody else?
Right.
So where do I see it going? I see anything AI, machine learning, tech. I mean, all that stuff, although it kind of took it on the chin a little bit. I mean, it's all coming back in spades, and everybody's seeing where it's going to go. So I think that's probably always going to be a safe field. STEM, anything STEM related is always going to be a safe field as you look at, the economy and where we're going and helping others and the world and purpose and community. I think that's going to be a big one. Professional services. Think about the things that relationships are more important than the outcome. So your financial advisor, your lawyer, your CPA, your any of those types of things, they're all on mass shortages right now, by the way. They all need people, and they're all struggling to find good people. But where relationships matter, that I think is going to be important. And we're starting to see it now. It's crazy because, if you think about AI, it's really only been about a year of just mass blasting. Everyone hears about it, but there's already starting to get AI fatigue. Like, I don't want to talk about AI. I don't want to work with a machine. I don't want that chat bot. Like, I want a human that I know is a human. And I'm seeing a lot of that, actually, which is great for me as a human who's on the phone all the time. But I think anything on the relationship side of it. And then, of course, you look at, like I said earlier, the skill label. And that was one thing I learned from one real good economist is there's just not enough people that want to get into the skilled labor areas. There's not enough people that are going to be doing it. And for the next 10 years, there's going to be a massive shortage, which is, of course, going to drive up the price of those careers, but then also make them better sought after. And universities and schools and a lot of places are already starting to, how do we educate that this, or evangelize that this is a great career path? How do we show that the person, you hit it right in the beginning, the person who started as a plumber out of a trade school is now living the life that you see on the Instagram and TikTok videos? Like, how do we, because that's what the kids want to see. They want that. They want the private jets and the helicopters and the things they used to see on MTV. That's what they think success looks like. So how does the plumber get there? And if you can draw that dot or draw that line to get there, I think that's where you're going to be successful.
Fascinating. You remind me of a joke about economists. They go, one economist, one opinion, 2 economists, 3 opinions. So I'm not surprised that you had a lack of clarity in some of your answers. Well, Matt, this was phenomenal. You got some insightful and very different ways of looking at the problem of talent and talent acquisition and talent retention. I appreciate it. What if people want to get in touch with you? What is the best way to do that?
Yeah, our website is bluesignal.com. And we're nationwide. We do a lot of recruiting in North America, but we also do some international recruiting as well. My email is just mwalsh, MWALSH @bluesignal.com, or you can just reach out to our website. We're all in sales and want to be reached out to. So everyone's contact info is everywhere, unfortunately. So reach me
I was going to say that sounds like a spam trap, but yeah. And maybe last question, Blue Signal. When I saw the name, I'm like, there has to be a reason why he picked that name.
Oh man, yeah, I get asked that a lot. So when I started,
you don't have a story, you're gonna have to make one up, man.
I know. Well, I have this story. It's just not as exciting as most people are expecting. But The short answer is I paid a marketing firm to come up with a name, but a lot of thought and went into it. I did it about 11 years ago. I knew telecom's a big field that I recruit in and continue to do it. And so just the idea of it, if you turn it on, it's the logo on the side. It's like a full signal and a cell phone. And then the signal part of it. And then blue is very professional and trustworthy. And so a lot of things went into it. It's easy to say, it's easy to remember. I actually called 10 people when I had like 5 or 6 different names. I called 10 people. And I ran them all by them. And then I called them all 3 days later and I asked them which one of those they remembered. And ironically, all 10 remembered Blue Signal.
Wow.
I know.
Okay, there's your name then. Well, that's a darn good reason, right? 10 out of 10 can remember it. That's why it's Blue Signal. So I'm amazed you got the URL though, frankly.
Yeah, I had to pay an arm and a leg for that even 10 years ago. I mean, because there's all these, I don't know if they call them squatters or what, but they buy all these websites and then they just sit on them and own them like real estate, which is smart. I wish I would have done that.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. This was awesome. Appreciate you getting up and talking to us, and I wish you good luck going forward. Thanks a lot, man.
Pleasure. This was fun. Thanks, Jim.
Cheers. This podcast is brought to you by the CEO Project. At the CEO Project, we work with CEOs to help them grow their business. And our members represent billions of dollars of revenue and profit. And frankly, amongst all of us, we've probably made every mistake in the book, including some you haven't made yet. So if you want to learn from the experience of a bunch of really seasoned CEOs, we're a great place to hang out. In this podcast, what you're going to hear are some of those ideas, concepts, and things that are just going to help you on your journey. If you want to find out more, reach out to us at theceoproject.com, or you can contact me personally at jim@theceoproject.com. Happy listening.
Thanks for listening to the Lazy CEO podcast. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.